Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself or comments about the podcast? Love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. Today on episode 76, we're honored to share the story of Monica Douglas Davis, a wife, a mother, a licensed counselor, an author, a life coach, and a heart transplant recipient. Monica's journey began after giving birth to her twin daughters when she was just 42 years old. What should have been a time of pure joy turned into a fight for survival. She was diagnosed with PPCM, a rare and often devastating form of heart failure that strikes new mothers. Monica's battle would eventually lead to her getting the ultimate gift, her heart transplant, in 2024. But her story isn't just about survival. It's about purpose, resilience, and using her experience to guide others as a counselor and coach. Today, we'll hear how she turned the darkest chapters of her life into a message of hope and healing. Stay with us. This is an episode you won't want to miss. Coming up next. Well, we're honored to have Monica Douglas Davis on with us today, the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. And let's kick things off by Monica, you telling us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm so happy to talk to you, BJ. Thank you for the opportunity. So I am Monica Douglas Davis, and I live in a suburb outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I am a wife and mother of 3 children. I have twin teenage daughters that are 15, going on 16, thinking they're 30. And I have a son who is 19, who's in college. I also, by profession, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm a professional speaker, best-selling author, and coach. And I like to work with families, specifically families who have chronic illness and ultimately leading up to organ transplant. I like to help them navigate the ups and downs, the emotional ins and outs of going through this thing that all of us that have had organ transplants go through. And so it's a pleasure to be a service and a help to those. And also I'm a patient advocate to help patients just navigate that process, and a big advocate of donor support and helping people to understand the importance of organ and tissue donation.
Wow, you're a busy lady, but it sounds like you've got a lot of good things going. So I appreciate all the work you do for organ donation. Yes, I do. And then I just joined one of your clubs. In fact, this is the week that it debuts. I wrote a book myself, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, and it'll be on Amazon starting this week. So
congratulations. Yay.
Yeah, so I am now in the official author club.
All right, welcome.
Well, this is all about your story. So if you would, Monica, why don't you tell us how it all began for you?
Well, 2010, at the age of 42, I had my twin daughters, and they are just a blessing to me. Their names are Nia and Imani, which means faith and purpose. And so I had the twins, and I just didn't feel well. I had to have a C-section, and they were premature, as a lot of twins are. So we were both in the hospital together. And when it was time for me to leave, I just didn't feel well. I just told the doctor, I just don't have energy. And he said, well, Monica, you're 42. You just had twins. You just need to go home and rest. And you got time because the twins stayed while I, went home. But I just didn't feel right. And so a few days later, maybe 5 days later, I had to go and get the staples removed from the C-section, and I just could hardly walk. I was coughing really bad. I just had swelling everywhere. And when I talked to my OBGYN, he said, same thing. You're 42. You had twins. Go home and rest. So then shortly after that, I picked the babies up from the hospital, and they thought that I was going into labor because I could hardly walk. So long story short is I told them I can hardly breathe. I went to the ER and they checked me, and my oxygen level was, I don't remember the exact number, but it was in the 80s, which was definitely low. And so they said, something's going on. And they started checking my heart and they said, you have congestive heart failure. And I said, what? What is that? And they said, well, it's called cardiomyopathy. It kind of means that my heart didn't like me birthing twins, pretty much. It put strain and stress on the heart.
Wow.
So anyway, that was 2010. Brought the babies home. I got on a lot of medication, changed the way I was eating. Of course, eliminated salt for the most part and was living life. And my heart rate at that time was at 15%. And what that means, just so people understand, the average heart is called an ejection fraction, which is the way that the heart pumps out the blood. Anything over 45 is good in general. And mine was 15. So that was really low. So they did get it back up to 25, 30. And they said, but you still have congestive heart failure. Fast forward 2018, I ended up having kidney stones, and it made my heart rate go down. So that was 18. And so at that point, my cardiologist said, you need to get a pacemaker defibrillator. So I did that in 2021. And I also got COVID, and my heart rate went down to about 15. Got COVID again, so I had it in the end of 2021, and I just had a cough that would not go. I coughed all the way from December 27th, 2021, until I actually had a transplant in February 7th, 2024. So I went to different doctors and everything to see what was going on. And ultimately in 2023, my dad passed away, and I went to visit him, and we'll go and see him before he passed, and then to do the funeral. And I had to be hospitalized right after the funeral because I just could hardly breathe, could hardly walk. And they said that I was in cardiogenic shock. And that means when your organs are shutting down as a result of the heart not pumping enough blood to them. There's not enough, oxygen and blood flowing to them. So that I had a lot of digestive issues. Again, that cough that wouldn't stop. I had sinus issues. I had lost a lot of weight. And again, the cough that was just, non-stop. And I had the shortness of breath, and then also had swelling in my legs. So I got diagnosed in Chicago, and then, but me living in the Atlanta area, I was treated here by specialists. They took really good care of me in Atlanta here. And ultimately, I was hospitalized in December of 2023, and then I received a transplant February 7th, 2024.
Well,
so that's my story. And by the way, the time I got the transplant, my heart was working 5%, 5 to 10. They said there was no way they understood how I was walking, talking, and functioning, and when I should have been on oxygen and all kind of stuff. But I really believe that, my faith in God helped keep me alive so that I can have that chance for a second chance at life and get in the heart that was graciously donated to me in February.
Now, I'm not the greatest at math, but I'm thinking if this started like in 2010, so that means those twin daughters were like 13, 14 years old. Now, I've got daughters. I've got a son, and that's usually about the age where you are like freaking out because, they're like becoming young adults. They get minds of their own. And there's just something about those young teen years it's like the baby brain falls out. And so that had to be even more stressful, I would say.
You know what? It had some stress, but I'm going to tell you what, BJ, I had the best support. My husband is just the best. He took on everything. He was mom, dad, chauffeur, cook, housekeeper. He was everything for them. He allowed me the opportunity to rest and recover. And then I have a family that's great. My mother came and stayed with us. I had an aunt that came and was my caregiver for a month. And so I just had a lot of support. I have friends that take me to all my appointments, and my son, who is, he was 16, so he was able to drive. So he drives me to doctor's appointments and things of that nature. So I just had a lot of support. So I'm very grateful for that.
Now, how was it? Because, and I've been asked this question before too, so I'm going to throw it at you. Okay, you've got basically 3 teenagers then, if I have it right then, right? The twins and your son?
Yes.
So
yes.
How was it? And let's say the day they said, Monica, you're going to need a transplant. How was it explaining that to the children?
So you know what? They knew that I had been sick, and so they knew something was wrong. And we just told them, Mom is going to get better, but it's going to require her to stay in the hospital until she gets a new heart. And so they were quiet, and they kind of looked at me, and all of them reacted in different ways. Not in my presence did they ever really show distress, but one of them was very clingy. She came around me. I said, she's a pest. She liked to bug me. I said, but that was her way. That was her way of checking on me and connecting. She just, let me come bug Mom. Let me just come look at her face. My son, he's more low key like my husband. He kind of, was just quiet, and, he might text me and say, how you doing, Mom? But again, he was my ride, so he was my transportation. So he kind of, just take me everywhere. And he actually even helped out with his sisters. He would take them to their activities and things like that. And then my other twin, she was the one that was my sweet one. She'll come and how you doing, Mom? I just wanted to text you and see how you doing. And, so they all, reacted differently, but they all took it well overall. They really did.
And now where were you like in the hospital at the time or when you got the call? Cause and some people get, like 2 or 3 calls because they're not the call, but you think you're on your way. So how was that experience for you? And where were you when you got the call?
Right. So I was hospitalized December 1st because, again, I had the swelling and my EF was, pretty low at that time. I want to say at that time it was around 12. And so they said, you're staying in the hospital. And then I stayed. So I was actually in the hospital when I got put on the transplant list. And then that's where I was when I actually received the call. But I did have 2 calls. I actually, the end of January the 27th, I actually was told that I had a heart. I was actually in surgery, the surgical room. They had prepped me and everything. And I was sitting there listening to my jazz music. We were laughing and talking, and I was all set. And then the surgeon came in and said, that's not a good heart for you. So it's not a good match. So he said, we're going to have to put you back on the list and start it over again. But then it was only 10 days later that I got the call again. And on the 7th, I actually did receive the heart. So
now I did not go through that, thank goodness. But how did that experience? I mean, you're excited, but yet you're afraid. And then when you get the call, well, no, it was not that good of heart. You're not going to get it. What was that like, if I can ask?
Sure. So I'm be honest. I went through a whole lot of emotions. I was like afraid because I'm like, well, what if I don't get out? I mean, I don't want to stay in this stupid hospital. Quite honestly, like, I want to go home. Shoot, can I at least go home and take a shower or something? Simply my mind was on crazy stuff. I think you go through a period of serious where you are just like temporarily insane. I really do think, because I just went from up to down to high to low to happy to sad to mad to even to the point where I'm like, well, you know what? I'm ready to go. If that's okay, let me just go. I felt like, well, let me get my house in order and everything. So I did everything. I talked to my husband and even my kids about the will and everything, quality of life for them. And, I talked to them about, what I would hope for their future. I hadn't given up, but I just wanted to be prepared and to tell them, to be prepared just in case. But I pretty much went through everything. And then I went to a point of just, like I say, acceptance. So I was like, okay, well, either I'm going to get one and it's going to be good, or I'm not and I'm okay and I've done the best that I could for my family. So it was just a lot of stuff I went through. But ultimately, I believe God was with me, even though I kind of felt like, you tripping. Like, did you forget? What's wrong? You picked the wrong one. I went through that. I said, this is Monica. Did you like, what happened? But ultimately, I know that it was just meant for me to go through this journey. So now I can share with others and help them have hope and resilience and know that there is good news on the other side.
Now, I know you said, you do some counseling and you're working with, transplant patients and things like that. Now, is this something you were doing prior to the illness, or is this something that you've kind of like taken on because you feel maybe the urge, or, that this is the path you need to take now that, you were saved with an organ transplant, or where did that begin?
So, so I was a child and family therapist. I love working with children and families. I used to specialize working with children that had ADHD and behavioral issues. And so that was my core focus in helping families, blended families, even children, families who had adopted children. So that's what I did prior to getting sick. And then during the later stages of the congestive heart failure, it just got to a point where I had to shut down because I couldn't talk because of the cough. Mm-hmm. And I really tried. But with all the coughing in between, it's kind of hard to talk to people if you're coughing, 80% of the conversation. So it just wasn't really working. And so even in the hospital, you would laugh at this, BJ. I was so funny. I'm sitting up there with, I had a, what do you call this thing? It was they call it a swan catheterization, but it goes in your neck and it goes into your heart to monitor 24/7 the function of the heart. So I had this big tube in my neck, and I'm sitting up here in the hospital trying to have counseling sessions. And I just put on like a really big shirt, like a really big thick shirt, one of those that had like a high collar and it's zipped up in the front. And I'm sitting up there trying. I had long hair covering up, and I was trying to cover up my tube in the hospital and doing counseling. And the nurses told my doctor, and the doctor came in and says, Miss Davis, you're going to need to stop doing that. And I said, you're going to pay these bills? It's expensive. She said, no. And I'm coughing in between, and I was like, yeah, you got it right. So I had to stop. And then after, though, I was sitting there. So I was like, oh, I'm bored. Because even though I was very, very ill, I still could move. I still could walk, the swelling, they took care of that, being on Lasix and all of that stuff during the hospitalization. So I was just bored. So it was put on my heart. You know what? I actually did counseling with, believe it or not, some of the staff in the hospital. They would come to my room and we would sit and chat and find out what was going on with this nurse today, or this doctor was going on with their family. And so I was just starting to work with the transplant community while I was in the hospital. And so it dawned on me, you know what? People need me. People need me because now I have lived experience and I can understand things that general therapists don't understand. And so that, became what I decided my vision would be when I restarted my practice. And so that's kind of how I started working with transplant patients.
Well, Monica, today's episode actually, is about you and your journey. And I think that's very important. But I do want to invite you back again, because I think this would be a great topic to talk to someone who has been working in the field and also went through a heart transplant. And it might help some of our audience out there, because I know there's people that are waiting. Some people maybe just got a transplant. And of course, there's some people like me, that are years out. with their transplant. So I think that would be a very interesting podcast. And I hope I can get you to come back and share some of your thoughts and maybe some of, I know you can't because of HIPAA laws talk about certain patients, but maybe some of the problems that you've faced that, that you've talked to others and helped through. That would be, I think, a very interesting podcast. So maybe we can do that, come back around in a few weeks if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I would love to do that because yes, it's an experience like no other. And my goal is to help serve others. So if I can share some of the tips and benefits and strategies to help people know that it's normal to feel not okay, it's okay to not be okay, then I'd definitely love to come back and do that, BJ.
Okay, because I would love to have that on. And I probably have some questions I could ask you myself. Maybe I'll lay on the couch for a few minutes.
Let's go for it. Sure, sounds fun.
Now, let me ask you this. How has it been? Because now, now we've had the transplant. How was your healing and how are we doing today?
So you know what? I call myself an Energizer Bunny, which is why I love working with ADHD people because we all have that little motor that's just go, 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 go. And so I think that I don't know who my donor was, but I'm grateful so much to that family and that person for, allowing me to have this second chance at life. But I am well. I run, kind of back to normal. I finally was able to get back to doing some things with the community. Actually, September 27th, I just had a health and wellness fair, and it was really good. Oh, my goodness. We had so many great people that come out, not just with organ transplant, but I did have the Georgia Transplant Foundation come out, as well as one of the hospitals here in the area that works with transplants. And we had people talking about insurance and, Medicaid and just all the things, financial support and all kinds of wellness and health things. And so I'm busy. I make sure that I try to be a support and advocate to the community about the importance of organ transplant and just overall wellness. Also, again, doing my private practice a little bit. So I'm, starting to get more clients about that as the word gets out about the services that I do. And of course, I'm back to being a mom again. These girls are giving it to me. They're almost 16 and they're driving with their permits. And I said, y'all trying to make my heart. Because they're different. One of them is the lead foot and the other one's the old lady driver. So, I'm doing that. And my son is in college. And so, helping him navigate the first years of college, because I remember those days, when I was in college. So, and my husband gets to take a little bit of a reprieve from being everything and all things. But of course, he's still very much a part of my recovery and my life. And so I am doing quite well. Thanks.
That is good. That is just so good to hear. And of course, I know as we talk about, all of our second chances with organ donation that have received the gift of life, because these are things now that you're seeing, your daughter's driving and your son going to college, that if the transplant was not possible and there wasn't those donors out there, these are things you would not be doing.
Absolutely correct. Yep. Every day. Mm-hmm.
Now, so like I said, I just think you have a great story. And I mean, I want to start asking you questions now about, you being a counselor, but we'll save that for another episode. I'll try to lay back in my chair and stay away from it. But now I know after I got my transplant, they came to me a couple times and they go, well, we have such and such down in room C, and they don't want to they're afraid and they're saying they don't know if they want to go through this transplant. Now, when you were first transplanted, and maybe that's what kind of gave you the fever to want to, counsel more with, organ donation patients. Did you do any of that? And because I found that so rewarding. I went into a lady's hospital room that just was flat out, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go through this. I don't want a heart transplant. And then she saw me walk into her room And she just lit up like a Christmas tree and says, "You had a heart transplant?" And I says, "Yeah, I had one like about 8 days ago." "Oh my God, you look amazing." And just to know that I reassured her enough that she changed her mind and went through with that heart transplant.
Wow. That is wonderful. In 8 days, you were up and going like that. That's beautiful.
I think what my problem was, see, I was sick as a kid. And so I had a bad heart all my life. And so once I got a new heart, I was like a whole new person. I like, whoa. And of course, the prednisone, you know, if you've experienced prednisone, that makes you feel like you're Superman anyway. But I was, you know, within a couple of weeks, I was ready to go, man. I was ready to rock and roll, baby.
I feel you. I understand that. Yeah, I that prednisone, I tell you, I was like, woo! I was like a little crackhead. I'm sorry, but it's just dizzy and jittery and. So you know what? The hospital I was in, fortunately, they did have advocates that did that. They do have patient advocates. So there was a man that used to come and see me actually while I was in there before. And because, like I said, I was in the hospital 3 months, but waiting. And so we actually they do have a team of patient advocates that do that. And now, as a matter of fact, we're in the process of starting a support group. Some hospitals already have them. Ours kind of had phased out. So I am going to be one of the people that will be restarting the transplant support group. So I will be doing kind of what you're saying. But as of yet, you know, we're still working on the logistics and all that stuff. But we are going to have a support group. But they do have patient advocates that come to the room. And it did make a difference because I was able to talk to him and I was able to hear his story and see his resilience again. And it gave me hope. And he was a little bit older than I was. So that helped me because I did, of course, want to have a long life. And so it was good to hear somebody who, you know, I think he was maybe 10 to 12 years out, if I'm not mistaken. And so, and he actually was so sweet. When I had my transplant, he came to the room and he gave me a pillow, a heart pillow. And I have it to this day. And I'm going to tell you, the first full year, I carried that heart pillow with me everywhere. So it made a world of difference for someone to come and talk to me and actually have that heart pillow, because I call him Harvey. I made a name for him. So everywhere Monica went, Harvey the heart went, and he was a support to me. And actually, because they did cut in your chest, when I went places, you know, I was very sore and tender for myself. So that heart was actually, I would hold it and put it like even under the seatbelt, you know, that would be extra cushion and support. So I think it is great to have patient advocates and people that do talk to you, because it does make a world of difference.
All right. Now I want to change 360 because I'm going to try to get away from you being the counselor, because that's going to be another episode. So what I want to talk about now, because you said you were also Monica, the author. What book or books do you have out? And are they about transplants, or what are they about?
So I'm working on my transplant book. So right now I have that in the work. I'm actually working on a workbook again. That'll probably come out first because my story is so long, you know, and I'm trying to put those bits and pieces together. I might have to do a couple of books about the transplant journey. But I have a book out. It's on Amazon. It's called God Made Me Beautiful, but I Didn't Know It. And that book is about inner beauty and self-esteem. Growing up, I was teased and told that I wasn't beauty. Beauty was considered, you know, the face and the skin. And I'm African American. And so in our community, sometimes there's some issues with skin color. And I was brown skin and I had short hair. And so I wrote a book about beauty and self-esteem. And then also, by me being a big parent support as a therapist, I have a book called 20 Tips for Effective Parenting in the 21st Century. And that one, again, is just to help us parents out, because, boy, I'm telling you, I have to refer to it myself all the time, because these kids are way advanced. You know, they almost come out the womb reaching for the cell phone nowadays, almost. So I wanted to give parents some, you know, practical tips that they could use in navigating being a parent in the 20th century. And then also I did do an anthology with a group of ladies where we talked about beyond mental illness. And so I talked about my journey with low self-esteem and struggling with depression. And so, yeah, those are the three things that are out there. And again, I'm currently working on the heart transplant information that soon will be coming out.
Yeah, well, you did. I just did one, and I'm worn out. I think I'm going to be. I think I'm going to be one and done. But mine pretty much goes through my first open heart surgery at 22 months old, all the way, to my heart and my kidney transplant. And basically, the premise is, my parents were told I'd never live to see the 70s. As far as the year, I'd never lived to see the 70s, and here I am now, 70. Looking for my car keys, trying to get to the early bird special. Basically, it covers all that time.
Wow.
Well, Monica, I appreciate it. And if you would too, if you have links for those books, please send that to me. And folks, you'll be able to find that in the show notes for the podcast. So you could go and buy one of Monica's books or all three and be waiting for the fourth, because she's a go-getter. I've only got one. She's got three and working on number 4. She's the go-getter in the group.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I definitely would do that. And my website is CARES Counseling, CARESCOUNSELING.com. So that's where you can find links for those books and upcoming information. And, I'm excited because you know what? We only have one life to live, and I've gotten a second chance. So I'm going to live it with vigor and with care and compassion. I say I'm guided by grace and grounded in care. So that's what I do. I really know that it makes a difference to get out there and serve others. So that's what I want to do.
Okay. Now, Monica, we do this every week, with our guest. And I'm going to do it with you. If there's anything I missed or anything that you think is important that you really want to get out there, I'm going to give you the opportunity to, close out the podcast this week and say whatever's on your heart or whatever maybe I missed.
So thanks, BJ. I would say know your family history is so important. Just even as you referenced, you were born with heart issues. A lot of people don't know their history, and I'm going to speak specifically for the African American community, which is what I'm a part of, is we don't like to talk about things. We don't like to deal with things. We even like to give things names that, for example, if you're diabetic, we say, oh, they have the sugar. No, you're diabetic. Or when we have high blood pressure, they say, oh, you just got a little bit of salt, So no, these are things that can affect you. So we need to know our history. In my own family, I have a brother that died in 2022 of a aortic dissection. My father, he had heart failure issues. It didn't kill him, but he did have those. And then ultimately, I ended up having heart failure, and I had an aortic dissection as well. So you need to know your family history and not know it, but share it. So all of my children now, I was told because of just, the genetic issues, they need to be screened. And even my siblings, I'm able to share that to them. Of course, they're all adults and it's up to to make that decision if they want to be screened. But if then if something goes wrong or something feels off, then you have a reference base to say, hey, can you check this? I think one of the things is people can often be misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed, but it's just because they don't even know their history. Whereas if you know your history, you're more informed and able to tell the professionals, the doctors and things, so they can go and look at those things and hopefully they can get you help sooner than later. So knowing your history can really save your life. So I think that's the most important thing that people should do is know your history and to share that with the family.
And I know, of course, you live as an Afro-American, and sometimes your community, I know, and I'm just going to reference this from other podcasts, are somewhat hesitant to become organ donors, as you were probably aware. What would you tell those folks?
I'm a living witness. It works, and we need you. Specifically, kidneys. African Americans tend to wait on the average, 7-8 years for a kidney, and people can live with one kidney. So you can be a living donor. So there are a lot of times, like I said, knowing your history, you can have a family match. Your cousin could be right there that could be saving your life, and you have no idea, or vice versa. You might be the one that could save, a family member's life or someone else's life. And it's just a matter of getting screened, getting tested, and just consenting to it, knowing the difference that it makes, because one person can save 8 lives and up to 70 with organ and with the tissues as well, because you might be skin donor or the corneas of the eyes, and there's all types of things. I know my husband's side of the family, he has a cousin who has sickle cell, and her older brother was able to give her stem cell. And so now she's in remission from sickle cell. So it really makes a difference. And I just think that if we're educated about it, which is one of the things that I am doing, I'm trying to educate my community and letting them know it's okay. And guess what? When you're gone, especially, you can't take those pieces with you. You might as well leave this earth. As I say, their last act before they left this earth was to give me a second chance at life. What greater gift can you do than that when you're gone? So when people look at it that way, then they're more apt to consider it. And no, people are not going to butcher you up and not, you don't even know. People don't even know. The doctors have no idea who is going to be the donor or when and if. So there's a lot of kind of myths and things going on about organ transplant and donation. And so I think that if we can just educate people and let them know that we're living witnesses and that it does work, then that can make a world of difference to people.
Well, Monica Douglas Davis, I appreciate your time. And we will have you back because we're going to talk about maybe issues that transplant patients have mentally and physically that they could use, some counseling on. And of course, we'll have all your information up on the show notes also. So you can go there and buy your books. And now, do you do any counseling? Let's say someone in another state or something wanted to talk to you. Can you do anything like that, or how does that work?
So thank you for asking me for that. So what I do is I do coaching. Licenses are restricted to states. And so right now I'm only licensed in Georgia. But I do coaching, but there's also, of course, an emotional component to it. But I definitely help. I have support groups that help with that. Also for caregivers, which is another whole topic.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah. So, but I do offer support, and my husband with that, because he, of course, was or is even still currently kind of there to support me as a caregiver. So I do have a coaching program that I do offer people that are outside the state of Georgia. So there's good resources everywhere. And then also I do have connections with a couple other people in some other states that maybe can help them, specifically in Maryland, Texas, and Florida. I do know some people that may be able to help people in those states with counseling.
Well, awesome. We'll put all that information up on the show notes. And I appreciate you, Monica, for coming on and sharing with us today. And of course, looking forward to having you back talking a little bit more about maybe helping some folks that maybe Thank you, Monica. And be sure to join us again next week for a new Heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and also don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yes today lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.